Hello magical hands, welcome back to another sewing tutorial. In this video I'll be showing you how to make a cargo pants. First of all, you have to understand that cargo pants comes in different forms, different types as well, ranging from the pocket size, from the pocket numbers, and also from the bagginess of the trousers. Anyways, without any further ado, let's get into this video proper. Make sure that your fabric is folded in two. The first measurement we'll be taking will be the waist to the hip line, which mine gives me 10 inches. But before you mark that, make sure that 2 inches of your tape is outside of the fabric, which is because of the waistband that will be attaching later. So now I've marked the 10 inches on my fabric, and the next point I'll be marking will be the crunch line of my cargo pants. From the hip line, I'll come down by 1.5 inch, which will be for my crunch line. You can come down by 1 inch if you so wish, but I prefer to come down by 1.5 inch. Now my hip measurement, which is 40.5 inches, I'll divide it by 4 inches, which gives me a 10.125. Now I'll mark the 10.125 on the hip line. I will mark that on the crunch line, and I'll also mark that on the waistline, which is the top part of this folded fabric. So after I marked it, I'm going to go ahead and add up 2 inches for sewing allowance. If you've watched my other palazzo tutorial, I added only half an inch, which was explained in that tutorial. But here I am adding 2 inches because I want to sew up 1 inch at both ends of the palazzo of the cargo pants. So I noticed my chalk was very faint, so I had to go ahead and edit these lines on it, and I hope we are all carried along. The next thing is for me to get my waist measurement, which will enable me get the hip curve. So now I'm going to start marking from that crunch line. I'm going to start marking from there inwards, and my waist measurement divided by 4 is an 8 inches, and I'll add up the 2 inch allowance. Now I'm just going to connect with my curve ruler to meet the hip line, and that is how we have our hip curve. This is very easy to work with. So now my hip measurements, which is a 40.5 divided by 4, which gives us a 10.125. I'm going to go ahead and divide it by 4 again, which gives me a 2.53 thereabouts. So now I'm going to mark that at the crunch line. I sincerely apologize if that part wasn't showing. I had no idea it wasn't showing. So I'll mark that at the extension of the crunch line. I'll go ahead with my curve ruler and curve it to meet the crunch line. I'll curve it with my using my curve ruler as a guide to meet the crunch line, and that to meet the hip line, and that will be the crunch of this. So guys, over to the full length of this, I will not be making use of my thighs measurements. I just needed my hip and my waist measurements. So now whatever I have at the crunch measurements, which is a 15.5 inches, that is what I will mark up to the full length of these cargo pants. Because I mentioned earlier that there are different types of cargo pants, and depending on how baggy you want yours to be, I really want this to be baggy. I don't want it to be like the NYC khaki here in Nigeria that is kind of pencil at the ends. I want it to be baggy because I am going for that type of vibes. But if you want yours to be slim, make sure to apply your thighs measurements, and do well to check my palazzo pants tutorial, which is more in-depth and more beginner friendly than this. So we move over to cutting the back piece after we have the front piece of the palazzo pant of the cargo pants already. Now I placed it in such a way that I have at least 1 inch space on the top part. So now I'm going to go ahead and I will come in by 1.5 inch. The reason is because our center back is not straight. It is kind of slopey. For a girl, it is not straight, and for some boys as well. So I'll come in by 1.5 inch, and I'm going to replace that 1.5 inch at this hip side. Now I'll go ahead with my ruler and connect it in a slope. Because of the bum at the back, it's going to kind of reduce it, and we want it to be a bit higher. So now at the crunch line, I extended that by another 2.5 inch, which I am still apologizing because I had no idea that part was not showing, but you will understand as we go further. So now I'm going to go ahead and connect this line, this our new center back, to meet with the extended crunch line that was extended by 2.5 inch. I use my curve ruler as a guide to get that point. Now at this hip line, I'm going to add up 1.5 inch up to the hip line, and then I'll just go ahead with my chalk and slant it to meet the front piece. Just slant it in to meet the front piece. Now At the crunch area, which I told you I extended by 2 inches, I will still slant it in. There is no measurement for that part, just slant it in to meet the front piece, and that is everything we have to do for the back piece. Now go ahead and start cutting this out, and also mark your full length, how long you want it to be. So I have my front piece and back piece already cut out, and the next thing I want to do is to get my pocket. Now for the pocket, I will be doing the inner pocket, but I don't want it to be very deep, not necessarily because I want the pocket. I'm just doing it because I want it to have the pocket design. So for the width, I have 7 inches, and for the length, I have a 9.5 inches. I will cut that in two, and I cut it on a fold as well. So now I'm going to separate them. 2 pieces going to be for the left side of the pocket, and 2 pieces going to be for the right side of the pocket. Now I'm going to place it at seam, and I'm going to get back my hip curve. Make sure that everything is accurate, like there is nothing behind. Just make sure you trim out the excesses. So now that I have that sorted out, the next thing I'll do is to start marking the pocket. I came here by 3 inches, which I would advise you do a 2.5 inch, but like I said, I just wanted the design, not necessarily because I wanted the pocket. For the depth, I marked 7 inches. I connected it in a square form, and then I used my curve ruler to enable me get the curve of the pocket. So now I'm going to cut it out. I'm going to cut out the main fabric, which is the trouser, and then I'm going to cut alongside with one of the pockets that I placed behind. The second pocket, make sure not to cut it out. So now that I've cut it out, this is what it is looking like. I'm going to go ahead and remove the one of the pockets that I cut out. Like I said, cut out only one out. I'm going to place it on the cargo pants, right face facing the right face. I'll use my pins to hold it, and then I'll take it to my sewing machine to sew up, which I have sewn already as seen. Now I'll go ahead with my scissors to notch. Reason why we notch is because we want the whole stuff to relax. Since it's in a curved form, it will relax better when you notch. And now I'm going to go ahead to top stitch. So I double top stitch, so it gives this kind of professional look. I know you understand what I'm saying. So now I'm about to place in the second pocket. So by the time you sew up your pocket like this, you realize that nothing is even missing, everything is still the same. We just have a design, and we have like an opening and all. So I'm still going to go over to my sewing machine, and now I'm going to sew up the pockets. Now the inner pocket, I'm just going to close that up. Just sew it up as indicated in the video. So now that I've sewed that up, this is what it is looking like. Now I'm going to fix in my phone so you see how deep the pocket is. Next thing we are doing is to get the pocket of the back piece. Now I'm going to find the midpoint of the back piece using this folding of the tape method, and once I have the midpoint figured out already, I'm going to now mark from the top part of the back piece to determine where the pocket will start from. So I'll be using 6 inches, but minus the 2 inches that will be for the waistband. So I'm going to be marking from 4 inches, and that is going to be where my back pocket will be placed. So now I'm going to mark from that midpoint. From to the left side, I will mark at least 2.5 inch, and for the right side I'll mark at least a 2.5 inch. You can mark yours to be 2 inch at both sides. So now that I have that, I folded my fabric again as seen, and I'll go ahead and cut that out in two, one for the left pocket and the other for the right pocket. So I'll go with my hot iron and then fold in 1/2 inch using my iron to do that. Now after doing that, I'm going to place that on the point where it should be, and then I'm going to show you how I'll be sewing that up. Now mind you, I'll be sewing on top. There's the stitch lines will be showing, and then for that top part I will not sew it on it, but I'll sew it separately. You will understand as we go further. So I've sewn up the top part, and now I'm about to place the pocket on this. I'll fold the pocket in two to make sure that the midpoints of the pocket align with the midpoint of the back piece. Now I've placed it on it and I've sewed it all round. This is what it is looking like. You can decide to double stitch yours, but I think I was okay with one. Pretty much it was looking very clean and all. Now we are going to start coupling up bit by bit. I place one of the back piece on one of the front piece, making sure they are facing right face facing the right face. I'm going to use my pins to hold them down together, and I'm going to sew out 1 inch for sewing allowance, and I'll sew that up to the full length. So I have taken it to my sewing machine and I've sewed that up. Make sure that once you sew up any line, make sure to iron it neatly. Trust me, you want this to come out looking perfect and all. So now that I have that sorted out, the next thing I want to do is to fix the combat pockets, or the side pockets. Now there are different kind of cargo pants. Like I mentioned earlier, there are some pockets that are two, one on the top side and one on the lower side, but I just want mine to have one because I'm going for what I have in this picture. Now take my tape and mark from the waist, making sure that the 2 inches for the waistband is placed outside of the fabric. I'll mark 20 inches, which is where I want the pockets to start from. So I'll mark 20 inches, and then I'll go up by 2 inch, which is going to be where the pocket cover is going to start from. So now that I have marked where my pocket will start from and where the pocket cover will start from, I'm going to mark the full length of the pocket itself. I'll be using my phone as a guide to get what I want, because this is going to be like my actual pocket where I'll be putting stuff in. So I marked 8.5 inches, which was okay for me. So now I'm going to go ahead with my extra fabric that I have left. Don't forget to mark 3 inches apart. That is how wide I want it to be. So altogether I have like 7 inches wide of pockets. So mark 3 inches from the center line. The reason why we're making use of the center line is because we want accuracy and all of that. So now I'll connect those lines together with a straight line. It might be looking slopey now. It is because of how my camera is placed slanted. So now I'll go ahead with my fabric and then I'll place it as seen. Now I want my pocket to have this pleated look at the center, so I will go ahead and pleat as seen. Just use your hand and arrange it. If you want it to be showing the pleat at the other side, do well to arrange it that way as well. So once I have done that, I'll go ahead with my pins and secure that, and then I will do the same thing to the top part, and then I'll be able to cut out my pockets and sew up all around and attach it. Now I took this to my ironing table and I gave it a very good press. After ironing it, I top stitched the top part and then I folded in with 1/2 inch, so I'll be able to sew up. Now if you want your pocket to look like this, all you have to do is just flip it over and then the pleat will be looking that way. But now I am okay with what I have. I'll go ahead and top stitch, and that is what we have. I'll fix in my phone so you all can see how deep the pocket is. At least this is enough to carry even keys and whatever I want to stuff in the pocket. So the next thing I will be doing now would be to place the cover of the pocket, to fix the cover of the pocket, and I'll be using the illustration like I did for the main pocket to get that done. So I am okay with what I have here, so I'll go ahead and cut it out. As usual, use your iron to fold in 1/2 inch to enable you to be able to top stitch well. So I have fixed the cover of the pocket and I really like the result. I am very okay with what it looks like. Oh my god, I am really okay with this. Make sure to iron yours very well. So the next thing we are going to be doing now, after I have stuffed my phone to size up the pockets, which I like the result, is to place the other part of the trouser on this, place them, and then start sewing up the crunch lines. Now use my pins to start securing them. Make sure to sew out the remaining 1 inch for the sewing allowance like I mentioned earlier, because we've already sewed out the 1 inch for the other side already. Now for the front, I'll come down by 6 inches because we're going to be having a fly zipper. I'm just going to mark the 6 inches, and then from there I will start sewing my 1 inch over to the end of the front crunch. So don't sew up from that top part, just start sewing from where the 6 inches comes from. Now we are done sewing up the crunch line as I've shown you all. The next thing I'll be doing is to sew up the inner thighs of this, which will be bringing us close to the end, because once we are done sewing that up, the next thing for us to do will be to sew the fly zipper. So I'm going to place it as seen from the crunch point as seen. I'm going to place it as seen from the crunch point. I'm going to use my pin to secure it, and then I'm going to sew out the remaining 1 inch for that part. I'm going to sew 1 inch allowance all through the legs and all of that. So once you are done sewing that up, because we did not slant the crunch line in, make sure to notch the crunch line once you are done sewing that up, so it can relax properly before you even iron. Make sure to notch. Now this is what we have after I've sewn up everything. Next thing I want to do is to start fixing my fly zipper. So I marked what I left out for the fly zipper, which is 7 inches. I'll go ahead and mark 7 inches on my excess fabric, and I'll mark 2 inches wide for the length. After I mark 7 inches for the length, I mark 2 inches wide. Now I'm going to go ahead with my scissors and cut that out. Now that I've cut it out, I'll go ahead and duplicate it into 2 because I need 2. One will be for the fly zipper side and the other one is going to be for the zip cover. You will understand, but I'm still going to upload a more detailed video of the fly zipper. So now I'll go ahead with my curve ruler and curve one of the ends of this. The curved one is going to be the fly zipper, while the other one is going to be the zip cover. So now I'll go ahead with the curved one and place it on the left side of this. From the camera it's showing as the right side, but it is the left side. I'll use my pins and hold them. I place them right face facing the right face. So after using my pins to hold it, I'm going to go ahead and sew up 1 inch because that is what we are using for our sewing allowance. Now that I've sewn it up, this is what it is looking like. I'll go ahead and now top stitch on the fly zipper side, and this is what it is looking like. Very, very clean. So now I'll go ahead with my zipper and I'll place my zipper on this, making sure that the right face of my zipper is touching the right face of this. So I'm going to go ahead and pin it up as seen. Now after pinning that side, I'll go to the other side and sew on the edge. Sew on the edge. You don't have to sew close to the zip, so it is very easier. Sew on the edge. Now that I've sewn it up, this is what it is looking like. So by the time I flip it over, you can see the zip is already hidden. Now moving over to the second side, I'm going to place the zip back the way it was placed before. I'll fold in 1/2 inch and then I'll place it as seen. This is going to cover the zip from behind. It's going to cover the excesses of the zip from behind. So I'm going to try to secure that with my pins as seen, so that it is stable while I take it over to my sewing machine to sew up. So now I'll go ahead and top stitch as seen. I'll top stitch as seen. So after I am done top stitching, the next thing I want to do now is to fix the second side on this. Now I'm going to place this on it, folding in the 1 inch for the sewing allowance, the remaining 1 inch for the sewing allowance. I'll use my pins to hold that down, then I'll top stitch down. Done doing that, this is what we have looking like. Now I want to get out that zip cover look. It is not totally compulsory, but it is necessary and it gives it this professional look. So I'm going to use my pins to hold down that side, and then I'll go ahead and top stitch to get that look, the zip cover look. Now that we have that sorted out, I cut out the excesses of the zip, and the next thing I want to do is to fix out my bands, and this is the results we have here. Please do well to subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching. See you in our next tutorial. Bye.